Greetings everyone, today I'm looking at one of the least expensive yet most versatile ultra-wide-angle lenses available for an aps-c camera. The Tamron 10-24mm f3.5 to 4.5 Di2 LD aspherical IF lens. Phew. Most people who get into photography seriously will eventually want to get themselves an ultra-wide-angle lens. Most zoom lenses for aps-c cameras go as wide as 18mm, maybe 17mm. However, as an ultra-wide-angle lens, this Tamron bad boy can go from 24mm, zooming out to as wide as 10mm. That's very useful for shooting inside small rooms and tight spaces, or even cavernous cathedrals. You can also use an ultra-wide-angle lens to get wild views of buildings or just everyday scenes that could do with a new perspective. Tamron have clearly designed this lens to hit hard against its competitors. It has the best zoom range of any aps-c ultra-wide-angle lens. It also has a reasonably good maximum aperture, going from f3.5 to 4.5 as you zoom in. And finally, it's one of the cheapest ultra-wide-angle lenses available. All those attributes make this lens very marketable on paper, but they also potentially don't bode well for image quality. Well, it was always going to be a popular lens just by virtue of getting you down to 10mm for such a low price, and being able to zoom into 24mm is genuinely handy. Bear in mind, this lens does not have image stabilization. Let's take a look at the lens's build quality. It's a little bit big and weighty, but it should balance fine on pretty much any camera. Most of the barrel is taken up by the zoom ring, which is very nice and smooth to turn. On the lens I tested, the manual focus ring was pretty stiff, but it was quite an old copy, so I imagine it's a bit smoother on a younger lens. The lens does not have full-time manual focus, so you shouldn't try to turn the focus ring when it's set to autofocus. And the front element of the lens does not turn or extend as you change focus. The autofocus motor is a bit slow really, and it makes a whining noise while it does its thing. It's your typical old-fashioned Tamron autofocus system from a few years ago. Overall, the lens feels a little cheap and it doesn't exactly seem built to last, but the reality is that it handles just fine. Let's take a look at image quality. This is a lens for aps-c cameras only, so I'll be testing it on my 20MP Canon 70D. We'll start at 10mm with the aperture wide open at f3.5. The middle of the image is reasonably sharp, but contrast levels are a bit low. The corners of the image are a bit soft, getting very soft in the extreme edges. There's also a healthy portion of green and purple chromatic aberration. However, stop the lens down to f5.6 and there's a lot more sharpness and contrast, and back in the middle of the picture we also see a much more punchy picture. It's just as good stopped down to f8, although the corners seem to enjoy another slight boost in sharpness. At f11, the corners are as sharp as they're going to get, i.e. usably sharp, but not impressive, and the chromatic aberration is stubbornly refusing to leave. So at 10mm it's a weak show at f3.5. When you stop the lens down you get good quality in the middle of the frame, although the corners continue to struggle a bit. Let's zoom the lens in to 24mm now. The maximum aperture has darkened to f4.5. Again, the middle of the image is okay, although we do see low contrast levels again. The corners of the image are a little soft, with noticeable chromatic aberration once again. Stop down to f5.6 for a small improvement in the corners, and quite a big one back in the middle, where the lens is now good and sharp. It becomes very sharp when you stop down again to f8, and the corners are looking okay. Those corners are as sharp as they're going to get when you stop down to f11, and the amount of chromatic aberration is not too bad now. So at 24mm, again, you have to stop the lens down quite a lot to get sharp pictures, but it's a slightly better performance than we saw at 10mm. Overall, the picture quality we see here is a little below average for an ultra-wide-angle lens. Let's look at distortion. At 10mm, we get some gentle barrel distortion in the corners of the image frame. What's slightly unusual is that we still get barrel distortion when the lens is zoomed in to 24mm, although thankfully it's only very slight. Not a particularly inspiring performance for distortion. However, vignetting is not too bad overall. The lens can focus averagely closely to your subject, near enough to be useful for pictures of flowers or other small things. With the aperture wide open at f4.5, the picture quality is a little bit soft, but top down to f5.6 and everything gets much sharper. The lens doesn't do great when working against bright lights. You lose contrast and get a little flaring. Loss of contrast seems to come very easily. Because of the lens's zoom range and averagely wide maximum aperture, you can get some out-of-focus backgrounds with this lens. The quality of the lens's bokeh is very good, looking nice and smooth wherever you can see it. This is actually better than usual for an ultra-wide-angle lens. So, what can we say overall? The picture quality of this lens leaves a bit to be desired. You have to stop it down to about f8 to get decently sharp pictures. It shows too much chromatic aberration, and its work against bright light is also below average, which is a sore point for an ultra-wide-angle lens, as you'll often be getting bright light somewhere in your field of view. However, I've got to tell you that it is actually quite a fun lens to use when you're out and about taking random pictures, mainly because its wide zoom range of 10 to 24mm is very handy, but also it's rewarding when you do get sharp pictures out of it. If you want a similar lens but better, then a Canon 10 to 22mm f3.5 to 4.5 is a close equivalent to this Tamron lens. It's more expensive, but better in just about every single way. If you're on the market for something inexpensive though, then check out my review of the new Canon 10 to 18mm IS STM, which is also very good value for money. You can get the job done with this Tamron lens, and it's fun to use, but at the end of the day, it's simply not as good as the competition.